Welcome to Laguna Woods Stories, in which we meet interesting people who live in Laguna Woods, and we have a very interesting guest today. This is Gila Zalin, and Gila, I have known you here at the Video Club in several different ways. I've known you as a writer and an actor and a very active participant in Video Club activities. But a whole lot I don't know about you, for example, I don't have any idea where you were born and how you happen to have the unusual name of Gila. Where were you born?
I was born in Brooklyn,
Okay.
New York, Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
Which at that time was a very poor cousin to Manhattan, but right now it is a rich cousin to Manhattan.
So I've heard.
Yes. And how did I get the name Gila? It is actually a biblical name. It's an Israeli name.
Is it? Okay.
Yes. I was named after my grandmother, who died before me. Her name was not Gila. Her name was Hasya, and Freidel. And in the Yiddish translation, Hasya means angry and Freidel means happy.
Oh, and she had both names.
Yes, so my family named me Charlotte.
Oh.
However, by the time I was 9 years old, I was already being called Gila, which was the Israeli translation of joy, of happy.
And beautiful.
So it just sort of, we have a lot of names in our family that people didn't keep, and mine was one of them.
True in many families that the preference of the child or the siblings a lot of times end up naming the child. And you apparently started your career very early, because a sheet I have here says that you started working professionally at age 16.
Yes,
oh my gosh.
I was a professional I had studied dance, ballet, since the age of 8.
Wow. With
some good people, and then I started studying with Martha Graham. I was a Martha Graham scholarship student.
Oh, no kidding.
And I studied with other well-known people, and suddenly I was invited into dance companies, including starting with a folk dance company, an Israeli folk dance company. And then from that folk dance company, one person and he became my partner, and we danced professionally, everywhere. We went to Canada, we went to Chicago, we went to, we danced at tons of places around New York.
Something that lasted through high school or beyond?
It's actually, I graduated high school at 16. So I was dancing before then, but I took on, so it happened while I was in college.
I see.
And I left college after 2 years. So, because my profession had grown so much.
Wow.
And then one day, one of my modern dance people invited me to be part of to join them in a summer stock production in Mount Gretna, Pennsylvania. And so I started doing showbiz dancing.
Okay. Was it just dancing at that point, no acting?
Well, I finally got into acting when I started doing being in shows. They'd give me little parts. And so I would dance, and I'd have little parts. So now I'm an actress also. Eventually, I didn't have a great voice, but I could carry a tune and belt it out. So I was known as a triple threat.
All right.
I could dance, sing, and act.
Wow. Amazing. And apparently you also could write, because fairly early in your career you were doing research and writing for a public television series. How did that come about?
I got an internship at PBS and did some stuff for them, and then they started doing Civilization and the Jews.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was put on the research writing team, and of the segment called Jews in America. And a number of my stories got part of the
How did you do the research? So this was probably not library research primarily,
Yes,
or was
the
it?
New York Public Library.
The one with the lions out front?
The ones with the lions out front. We didn't have internet. We didn't have anything like that. I spent tons of time in the library, and luckily I knew one of the librarians there that helped me out a lot.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And did you interview some of the people or their families? Or?
No, because it was all historical. My research was all from the early days of Jews in America, all the way up to the early 1900s.
And as part of this project, I understand you wrote some dramas.
I did.
Plays.
Yeah. As part of that project, I wrote a screenplay.
Uh-huh.
But that wasn't what got me into screenplay writing. What got me into screenplay writing was the town that I was living in Maplewood. We heard that I was very involved in all the creative stuff that was going on. Mm-hmm. And we heard that there was going to be a contest for a short film and you choose your own charity.
Oh, for a fundraiser.
Yeah, as fun, yes. So I got a partner, a production partner, and we got a cinematographer, and I wrote it and acted in it, and we did something for Children's Pediatric AIDS, for a Pediatric AIDS Society. Wow. And they used it as a fundraiser for I don't know how long. We didn't get paid, but it was very thrilling to have done.
You did some good and got your name out there a little bit too. So
right.
That doesn't hurt to. In this this kind of business, it's all about projects that are kind of short-lived usually. And so, like say in the film business, you're only as good as your last film. So.
That's what they say. Right.
So
yes.
I see here that you did two ventures. You Are My Sunshine and Dream House.
Yes. Dream House was a 20-minute short film that we decided to just do.
Oh.
The same partner and I, because we wanted to continue working. So I wrote an original script, and we had auditions, and we, this time we had to do some union stuff, and we made the film Dream House, and Dream House went to tons of film festivals, some of which I didn't even send it out to, but somebody from one film festival thought it would work at another film festival and sent it there and then told me it was going to be there.
Really?
It was and we won some awards for it.
Oh, wow.
Jules and I came out to the one in the California International Film Festival. We came out to see it there. And we saw it also when it was in New Jersey, because we lived in New Jersey, so that was easy.
Now, you just mentioned the name Jules, who is your husband. And,
yes.
And some of our viewers will remember that we did a session, a recording session with Jules. I think it was now probably a couple of years ago because of COVID. And so we learned a lot about his interesting career as an attorney, and particularly in the copyright field.
Yeah. He had an interesting...
very interesting interview. So how did you and Jules get together, and when did that happen? Well,
I took what I thought was going to be just a temporary position at a talent agency called, at that time it was called Ashley Famous. It's now called ICM, which is like the second biggest one out there.
Huge.
And I thought I was going to be there as a secretary for a few weeks until the secretary would come back that had left. But it turned out she didn't come back, so they asked me to stay on, and then they asked me to become an agent there, a literary agent.
Still in New York at this point?
In New York.
Okay.
Jules was one of their attorneys.
I see.
And you weren't supposed to date anybody. I mean, one of the rules was you don't date anyone.
And of course, that never happened.
Well, we didn't tell anybody. But after a few months, because now I'm a literary agent and he's, attorney there, we had to tell them we were engaged.
Oh, yeah.
And the head of the, our office manager, who thought he knew everything that was going on. Actually, before that, our office manager, who thought he knew everything going on, introduced us because he wanted him to do a contract for me.
I see.
Yeah. But then when we told them we were engaged, they were all very surprised and gave us a huge party.
Oh, wonderful. So you were able to keep it a secret.
Yes.
I'm sure that wasn't easy.
It wasn't, but it was fun.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And I also know from experience that you're not the only actor in the family, that your husband is also quite a good actor, because you wrote a play that we filmed here in the video club called Write It Down, and we couldn't find a better lead actor than you, and playing opposite you was your husband in the play and your husband in real life, Jules Allen. So, so that worked out very, very well.
Yeah, Jules did some acting when he was young, when he was a kid, for a so-called Shakespeare company.
So-called?
But acting runs in his family too, so yeah. And then we decided we had some local theater where we lived in Maplewood, and when I wrote and produced some of the plays there, because I wrote some shows, I directed some shows, I produced some shows, and I called him in to do parts every so often. And he has a gorgeous singing voice.
Is that right? We haven't heard that yet.
Yes, gorgeous. So when we did Gilbert and Sullivan, which I did not write, but I did produce one of. We did I didn't direct Pirates. I directed Pinafore.
Oh yeah.
And we called him in. I called him in to do one of the parts, and he was wonderful. And so then he did one of the leads in Pirates, which they did afterwards, and. Yeah, so his career.
Well, you might be a little prejudiced, but if the producers, if the producers called him back to do other parts, he must have been more than okay.
He was definitely. His voice was gorgeous.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
You did a screenplay called "Home Wasn't Built in a Day," and that did well.
Oh, how'd you find out about that? That's interesting.
I looked you up on the internet.
Oh, my God. I didn't know it was on the internet. Yes, I won awards for that screenplay.
Yeah.
I won, I got myself on the front cover of a writing magazine because of it. It's still sitting around.
Well, that's kind of the bane of writing, isn't it? That you write some of your best stuff never gets published or produced.
There was another screenplay I did. Oh, I also wrote a screenplay that we managed to make a short film out of, and which I called Pandora's Box. And that one we did, the short was produced. It was with
Joseph Montana. Joseph.
Oh, Joseph. Oh, right, Joseph Montana.
The voice from the side is Jules.
Yes, sorry, right. I had a blank moment. So we had a star in it and some other excellent actors,
okay. Right.
And that one also won awards.
That helps.
And I would like to produce the full length that was part of, that was based
on. Was that
like
a 90-minute feature?
Yes, a 90-minute feature. And I actually now am most recently involved with a new film company. And Jules is their lawyer. And I am on their one of their writers, and I hope to do a reading of my screenplay, maybe with some of the old pros here. And if I do the reading, they will show it to all of their backers and everything.
Well, it sounds like starting as a dancer and then an actor and morphing. We haven't left any of those behind, but morphing into writer. How did you learn how to be a writer?
Well, I don't know how I learned, but I'll tell you a few stories.
Okay.
When I was a dancer, they needed somebody. This was early on. I was about 18. They needed someone to write, if this was for a children's show. So they wanted someone to write a narration for the particular dance that we were doing. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I wrote the narration, and then they asked me to be the narrator, to read it. And then they needed someone to write about it in Dance Magazine. So they asked me to do it.
Write a feature article about it.
Yeah, and I did. And I don't know how it happened. And before you knew it, I wrote a few articles more for Dance Magazine. And then...
so you hadn't had any particular training or took college courses in screenwriting or anything like that?
No.
This is probably fairly discouraging to people who have taken the courses and can't find work.
Yeah, well, whether you've taken the courses or not, it's hard to find.
Right.
But no, I had not.
True.
It just sort of happened. Right.
The opportunities came and you said yes,
right.
Which I think is a life lesson too, isn't it? That if you take the opportunities that come your way, you tend to get more opportunities.
Yeah, we hope, we keep thinking. But one of my other experiences, besides being a writer, actor, singer, dancer, I made costumes.
Okay.
I designed and made costumes for most of the groups that I was in, and with me, my partner and I created and made the costumes.
You say your partner, you're talking about
my dance
your
partner.
Dance partner.
Yeah. And then after my first season of Summer Stock, when I came back, I had become friendly with one of the girls there. And she said a friend of hers was about to enter a contest at the Lion's Den in New York, and they had a costume designer, but they needed a seamstress, someone to sew. And would I do it?
Had you learned that skill at home?
I guess from my grandfather was a tailor, so we always had a sewing machine home, and we just always all sewed things. Again, I don't know. Don't ask me how.
Oh, my gosh.
So I said I would do it. So I helped the designer, whose name was Terry Leung, to create the costume. And
you're designing them on paper, or?
He designed it on paper, and the two of us put it together, and I did the sewing. And the night before the contest, when we were all exhausted, and I'm not going to tell you the name of the person yet, who we were all exhausted, and we're sitting there in Carnegie Tavern, and Terry Leung says, "I am so tired, I can hardly keep my eyes slanted." And we, of course, fell on the floor. The next day, we go to the contest, and the person we made the costume for is fantastic. And she wins the contest, hands over feet. And I said, "You know, Barbara, all you have to do is change your last name from Streisand to Sands, and you're going to be famous one day." She said, "No, I'm just going to take off one of the A's in Barbara." So that's how Barbara Streisand got her start.
Right. Oh, my gosh, what a story.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So,
wearing your costume.
Exactly.
And no costume malfunction or whatever, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Tell me about the Rife machine.
Okay, that is my project that that was the subject of the short film Pandora's Box that Joe
I see.
Mantegna was in.
Okay.
And that's the Rife Machine was the original name. You got that off the internet too?
Yeah.
Well, the Rife Machine was the original name of what I now call No Alternative.
Ah.
And it is a script which has won some awards, but it's been very hard for me to get it made. So
a lot of people, I think, don't realize that the writer has a fairly difficult time in this industry for two reasons. One is somebody may buy your script and then murder it in the post-production or production thing and not resemble your ideas at all. It's got your name on it, and some writers insist to take my name off of it.
I'll tell you another story.
All right.
So when I was in my early 20s, I was living in California, dancing and working with the Angels Theater, acting. And my cousin was a very, very famous writer, for TV writer. His name was Howard Rodman, and he wrote for a number. He created a number of TV shows and kept writing for them. And he suggested, why don't you write a screenplay, a series, a TV series.
Oh, wow.
I said, sure. And I wrote a TV series. He said, oh, it's good. I'll send it into, and there was some big name. I forget who it was. So we sent it in to that person, and 3 months later I said, you know, did anybody read it? Is anything going on with it? They said, no, we're not really interested. Anyway, we have something similar going on, and, you know, sure. And 2 years later, Lost in Space came out, and it was mine.
Okay, but your name is not on it.
No.
Yeah, and unfortunately that happens in Hollywood, and that's.
I didn't know Jules at the time.
I was going to say why you're married to a patent attorney.
Yeah, well,
not patent, but
copyright, trademark,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, but a lot of times it's hard to prove that you originated an idea. But
I was so dumb. I was very young. I had no idea how to protect it.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. I just wrote it and sent it in. I didn't have a copyright.
Yeah.
And I guess my cousin, who, you know, with the best of intentions, didn't realize, because he was so famous, nobody ever stole anything from him. So I guess he didn't realize that I had to protect it. I don't know.
Yeah, and he
what it was.
maybe assumed that you had copyrighted it. But
Right.
well, the other thing that often happens to writers is that they write something really good, and they sell it, and then it never gets produced.
Yes. Yes.
Which is almost the worst thing that can happen,
Yes.
because then you can't do anything with it. You no longer own it.
Right.
And sometimes people buy it to keep it from being produced because they have in mind to do something
Yes.
similar.
Yes.
So, or they just never get around to it, and that's a heartbreak when you have a beautifully written piece that you don't own anymore, and
What do you do? Yeah.
Did you have any of those orphans?
No, actually, I have my screenplay about the Rife Machine, No Alternative, I have had interest from 3 or 4 different producers for that. I'll say something else too. 3 or 4 different producers have been interested in that, but I never gave the rights to them. You know, I still owned the rights, and they have not done it so far. But I had a movie that I was going to make that I didn't write, that I had the rights to produce. We had almost completely produced. I had gotten the money together. It was going to be done in Yugoslavia. An English company was a production company.
About Yugoslavia, you wanted it to look kind of old world.
No, it was being shot in Yugoslavia because there was a film company there that was very, very cheap to work.
Okay, interrupted your story.
No. And we were really hot to trot, and then all of a sudden, someone named Milosevic came along, and before you knew it, Yugoslavia was in a war, and the film studio was no longer existing, and the money had been turned off from England, and it all went totally awry, and it never got done.
And so often, kinds of things like that can happen. You were involved in a series on Winston Churchill.
Oh, yes, I was. The Winston Churchill series, I was working for Metro Media at that, which I don't think it exists anymore, but at that time in New York was Channel 5. And I was an assistant to the associate producer.
Okay.
For that. And it was starring someone named Richard Burton, right?
I've heard the name.
Yes, you've heard that name. And my particular job was to research all of the, since it was a documentary, the photography and whatever photography and films I could find that would work into. So I was again at the library, but this time I also had to work with the Library of Congress and I had to do some overseas, writing overseas to send me stuff. So that was my job for that one.
These days, with so much stuff on the internet, it must just break your heart to think how hard they had to work to find this stuff before.
So different. It's crazy. Yeah. I had to work really hard for that one. I didn't know all these things were out there.
You'd be surprised what you can find on the internet.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Nothing bad, though.
So far.
Things that almost happened.
That was a play. When I was in California again, before I met Jules, I was in a group called the Angels Theater. And that was Corey Allen, if you know the name. He was a fairly well-known actor at the time. It was his theater. And I was teaching dance there and taking acting lessons. And then they wanted to produce Death of a Salesman.
Oh, yeah.
And it was with Herschel Bernardi. And so I was on the producers team. I worked as a producer for the first time in something really as a producer. And I loved it.
I would think. So
when I met Jules, one day I said, I really want to produce a play. I had such a good experience doing, Death of a Salesman. Let's produce a play. So we produced our first off-Broadway play called Things That Almost Happened. The title is... It ran for its preview and for its opening night.
Well, would you believe we've already run through our half hour?
Oh, okay.
So I want to thank Gila for coming in and sharing some aspects of your wonderful life with us. We expect, we've seen great things from you in the past here with the Video Club, and we expect many more as time goes by.
I hope so. I truly hope so. I'm happy to be here without a mask and be able to do this with you.
Thank you so much.